25 people have been killed and another 9 are still missing after an inferno swept through a Californian dive boat in the middle of the night. Some of the crew managed to jump to safety, but those sleeping downstairs were trapped.
A ship ablaze and a frantic call for help.
I can't breathe.
Fire crews and the Coast Guard arriving to discover the hull of the 22-metre vessel ablaze.
Roger, can you get back on board and unlock the boat, unlock the doors so they can get off?
39 people were aboard the dive charter when the flames broke out at 3:30 this morning. 5 crew members working on the deck diving overboard, while 34 others slept below.
The crews were actively fighting the fire when the vessel began to sink.
This old footage shows the cramped sleeping quarters below deck.
This is probably the worst case scenario you could possibly have. Fire is the scourge of any ship.
A 20-year-old Iranian woman was sentenced this week for removing her hijab in public. Sabah Gord Afshari was handed a 24-year term by Tehran's Revolutionary Court. She was taking part in the White Wednesdays campaign, which consists of Iranian women who are protesting for their rights in the Islamic Republic. They do so, in part, by removing their compulsory headwear to reveal their hair in public. Our next guest has been following Sabah's story right from the beginning. Maseh Alinejad is an Iranian activist who lives in the United States, and she started the White Wednesdays campaign.
The prison sentence was very, very harsh and heartbreaking. From the beginning, I was very shocked when I heard that just removing hijab can cause a 20-year-old woman to 15-year prison, and protesting against the regime altogether sentenced her for 24 years prison.
That is a live look at the satellite showing Hurricane Dorian. Right now, it has been stalled over the Bahamas for more than 48 hours. Look at the winds it delivered on that island. It does appear to be moving north later today.
And it is causing catastrophic damage, as we can see. And take a look at the Grand Bahama International Airport in Freeport. Well, that's the mess, and now the East Coast is bracing for impact. States of emergency have been declared from Florida to Virginia.
So let's go back to Ginger, who's there in Jupiter, Florida. And Ginger, as you've been saying, one of the biggest threats we have to look out for, storm surge.
Yes, Robin, the piling up of water. And this morning, the winds, obviously, I'm getting sandblasted here. But look at this. This is low tide. So this is the lowest it's going to get. There should be a beach that extends much farther out. There is not this morning, and this is only going to get worse today. Our high tide happens just before noon. You pair that with the piling of water on the order of 2 to 4 feet of storm surge, or 4 to 7, it's going to be a problem.
Now to new details about that deadly mass shooting in Texas. This morning we're learning the gunman who went on that rampage, leaving 7 people dead and 22 injured. That gunman was federally banned from owning a firearm, raising new questions about how he got it.
Robin, that rampage ended with a massive shootout with police behind me. Hundreds of moviegoers evacuated from that theater, diving for cover in this field here. But it began 90 minutes earlier. That gunman fired from his job, and we now learn that he called the police and the FBI in the minutes before he began shooting. This morning, we learned that gunman seen here ramming police cars, bullets flying in this finale to his rampage, called police and the FBI minutes before the shooting started.
It was a very incoherent call. Didn't make any threats.
He had also threatened his neighbor, who told us that he would shoot that AR-style rifle out of his window at night. She told us she called the police about it, but says they never came.
Under the supervision of the US military, Syrian Kurdish YPG fighters fill in tunnels and defensive positions along the border with Turkey. The YPG forms the bulk of the US-trained and backed Syrian Defense Force, the SDF. It will now pull back between 5 and 17 kilometers, although Turkey is demanding a 30-kilometer buffer.
30 kilometers is a large number and would cut us off from an important road that leads to Aleppo. It is impossible the administration would accept this because of the impact on our daily lives.
Kurdish-administered northeastern Syria has been relatively peaceful after YPG fighters pushed out ISIL earlier in the war. The US considers the Kurds their most important partner in the fight against ISIL. But Turkey says the YPG is allied to the Kurdistan Workers' Party, the PKK, so its long-term presence along the border won't be tolerated.
In Kabul, smoke and anger fill the streets. The Taliban launched an attack against what's known as the Green Village, a secure compound for foreigners, on Monday night. By Tuesday morning, residents were on the streets, angry that their neighbourhood has been repeatedly targeted, and blamed the international presence. Security forces attempted to disperse protesters with gunfire.
My friends and relatives were killed and wounded in the blast. This is the 5th time this area has been attacked. We want officials to move the foreigners away from this area.
The Taliban detonated a tractor packed with explosives. A search and rescue operation for foreigners and residents lasted through the night. More than a dozen residents were killed.
Mahmoud is one of many Libyans who paid a high price during the Arab Spring.
In 2011, I took part in the battles against former regime leader Muammar Gaddafi. In those battles, I was shot and my leg was amputated. My fingers here were also amputated.
But the fighting wasn't over for Libya or for Mahmoud. Militias have battled for control of the country since Gaddafi's fall. In April, warlord Khalifa Haftar launched an operation to take the city of Tripoli from Libya's UN-backed government. Since then, Mahmoud has been back on the front lines.
I joined the battle when Khalifa Haftar, the war criminal, launched an offensive on Tripoli. He wants to take the power from the UN-recognized government. My friends and I wanted to protect civilians and the legitimacy of our government.
Mahmoud also helps his friends maintain military vehicles and weapons for the government in Tripoli.
This used to be a road for cars. Now it's a waterway for boats. Flash floods have turned vast areas along the Nile into a continuous lake. Hundreds of villages in 6 federal states across Sudan have been evacuated, including Wad Ramli, some 40 kilometers north of Khartoum. Residents say that in their lifetime, they've never seen a flooding of such magnitude.
The riverbed itself is 4 kilometers from here. All this land is submerged. And for 20 days now, people have been trying to extract their belongings from the village that has melted into water because most of the buildings there are made of mud bricks.
We need more canoes and big trucks to help move our furniture out of the water. We've been forced to leave everything behind, even money, gold and other precious belongings. And huge amounts of crops are lost as water drowned the farms.
I don't want to spend your time or waste your time for you to ask me what went wrong and why went wrong. But for a chief executive to have caused this huge havoc to Hong Kong is unforgivable. It's just unforgivable. If I have a choice, the first thing is to quit. Having made a deep apology is to step down. So I make a plea to you for your forgiveness.
He's announced a series of guidelines that will be discussed in this 3-month consultation, and it's all here in this booklet, primarily looking at ways of unifying the government's approach towards dealing with what he calls is a massive problem for this country. He described domestic violence as the ultimate sexist act, where some men act with impunity, believing that the woman, their wife, their partner, solely belongs to them. And he said that attitude has to come to an end. As a result, the government is looking to boost the number of emergency places in emergency shelters. In addition, looking at increasing accommodation opportunities for those women and those children on a longer-term basis. They're also going to audit some 400 police stations and look at them closely as to how they deal with domestic violence